Hello everyone, this is my presentation on Universal Archival Description. I'm Alexandria Olson. So now I will talk a bit more about what I mean by Universal Archival Description. With more collections becoming available online is allowing for more people across the world to access archival materials, but it can become more difficult when different countries or regions have their own description standards. Within the past 20 years, information professionals have been working on developing a universal system for archival description in a variety of formats. I would like to share the different ways archivists and information professionals have been developing more universal systems for archival description. First, I just want to quickly cover the outline. I'm going to first cover EAD and MAD in its relation to ISAD and the potential problems, and then from there going on to the potential problems that could arise with the universal system. As mentioned, I'll first cover EAD and MAD. EAD comes from the United States, and MAD is a system that comes from the United Kingdom. With the internet boom in the 1990s, archivists felt it was more necessary than ever to put finding aids and other archival information online to make it more accessible to users. It then became more necessary to create a way of doing so. Despite the promotion of EAD, or encoded archival description, by the Society of American Archivists, some archivists still do not use EAD, stemming from the idea it might become outdated or lack of financial support within their archive institution. Although there is a dislike, many archivists do use it when creating online finding aids. To connect EAD to the rest of the world, it's closely associated with the German-founded EAC CPF, which is an XML schema, which stands for Encoded Archival Context for Corporate Bodies, Persons, and Families, which is related to the International Standard Archival Authority Records for Corporate Bodies, Persons, and Families, ISAAR, which was created by ICA, which is the International Council of Archives. Moving on to MAD, or Manual for Archival Description, it served as a manual for creating finding aids and its formats, and it was originally from the United Kingdom. It served also as a prelude to ISAD, or the International Standard for Archival Description, and according to McNeil and Douglas, the government-funded British online collection system is dependent on a combination of both EAD and ISAD. Now on to the international archival description systems with the International Council of Archives, ICA, and ISAD. I first want to focus on European countries or examples and how they use ISA systems. The first one, forgive my pronunciation, is based in Italy, Università di Firenze. One of the systems that they use is Records and Context, which allows for a better connection not just between archives, but also between archives and libraries. Right now, RIC is focusing on RDF files and trying to make them available and more accessible from archives to archives, and also from archives to libraries and other systems. Moving on to the French National Archives, or the National Archives of France, they originally used EAD, but they are now moving or having projects to move to the EAC SPF system, all in an effort to make them more accessible to people around the world. Moving on to a few examples outside of Europe, both of these, they didn't have specific institutions that they were talking about, or in the South Korea case, they didn't name the institution, but it was a case study about the institution implementing ISAD, but despite trying to implement the new system across a library and an archive, they ended up going with the different formats for the library just because it ended up being a lot of work and it didn't really fit how people like the workflow within Korea. And then with the Israeli archives, they used already a combination of EAD, the US MARC system, ISAD, but they haven't really fully switched over to ISAAR and EAC because, especially at the time of the article being released, the systems were relatively new and hadn't really been tested thoroughly, and they didn't know if they really wanted to implement the system. I want to specifically talk about ISAAR and control vocabs. Similar to ISAD and EAC, by having a controlled vocabulary allows for easier connection throughout the users with vocab. I now want to move on to the potential issues that come with having a sort of international or universal system or systems that are created by the ICA. Going back to the controlled vocab, with the creation of an international controlled vocabulary such as ISAAR, it could create bias or unequal focus on certain cultures. So I think it's important that when creating and revising controlled vocabulary, that people have cultural competency, just to make people more aware of their biases and try to avoid them, as well as making sure there's shared authority in situations like this to make sure that people are able to add words that they feel are important. By moving towards a more connected and universal system in terms of description and vocabulary, it allows for easier accessibility for people all over the world. This work of universal archival description systems is already being carried out by the ICA. At the same time, it is important that the ICA and the systems that they create are strong in their approach of creating an accurate and equal description for all different kinds of people and cultures. Thank you so much for listening. Here are the sources that I used for my presentation.